Dr. Chris here, orthopedic surgeon and sports medicine physician. And today, we're gonna react to 14 exercises that you should modify if you are over 50. Just for the record, this article was actually previously entitled, Exercise You Should Never Do After the Age of 50. But I'm guessing that she got a lot of heat.
Yep.
And the article was subsequently changed to exercises to modify if you are over 50. I'm gonna tell you what I think and let you know if I think you should be doing these exercises if you're over 50.
Okay.
So at the beginning of this article, the author does qualify her statements by saying that if you haven't been active previously, there are some exercises that you should use only with caution to avoid the risk of injuring yourself. If you're over the age of 50 and you have not been active in the past, jumping into exercise or to strenuous activity right away without any kind of training or without any kind of medical assessment could be hazardous. There are lots of things that could have occurred in your body internally that you have no idea about. Many of those things may not respond well to the sudden stress or the sudden level of activity. If you've not been active before in the past, you have no frame of reference for what is too much or too little or just the right amount of activity. That is something that you will only learn with experience over time. If you have not been active in the past, it's important for you to engage in activity with somebody more experienced or a personal trainer so that you will know what is the appropriate level of exertion for the activities that you're doing. There you go. 14 exercises to modify if you're over 50. I guess the internet has spoken. She had to change it. All right, so let's see. Number 1, running stairs. Being able to get up and down stairs comfortably and easily is a key part of everyday life, but unless you're in excellent shape, you may not want to run them. For exercise purposes, consider using a stair climbing machine instead of running actual steps. For those who are unfit, the danger and consequences of falling increase with each passing year, warned spinal care expert Bradley W. Bartle Jr. Anytime you run stairs, I don't care whether you're young, old, anything in between, there is a risk of injury. You could slip, fall, turn an ankle, break a bone, and injure yourself. As you get older, yes, it is true that your risk of fracture increases. One of the reasons is because as we get older, people do less and less impact or resistance training. Obviously, running is an impact exercise, and for people who have some arthritis in their joints, they want to kind of minimize the amount of impact they do, or at least meter it out in smaller doses.
Osteopenia is a problem that affects the bones. It's softening of the bones. Osteoarthritis, however, is a problem which affects the joints, which are at the ends of the bones, the articular surface. So those are two separate problems. Most women over the age of 35, and then most people over the age of about 50, 55, have some degree of osteopenia or softening of the bones. And this is counteracted by doing impact activities or strength training or resistance training with weights. Osteoarthritis, which is a separate problem, affects the joints and it affects the mobility of the joints. So obviously, as you lose cartilage of the joints and as the osteoarthritis gets worse, then the mobility decreases. Even though you have osteoarthritis, you may still and most likely will have osteopenia. The way to get rid of osteopenia, or at least to slow down the progression of it, is to do weight training or resistance exercise. If you have this, the osteoarthritis, with decreased joint mobility, it may affect your ability to do resistance training or weight exercise. However, you still need to do those things because you want to avoid the effects of osteopenia.
It goes without being said that for most people, stairs are something that we have to use in our day-to-day lives. Running stairs doesn't mean that you are running up to the top of the CN Tower as fast as you possibly can. It may mean running up one flight of steps, or it may mean something as simple as taking the steps 2 at a time, taking the steps at a brisk pace. You should not be afraid of using the stairs as a means of exercising or engaging in fitness activity. Number 2, Bikram or hot yoga. According to Dr. Bartle, extreme heat can cause dizziness or fainting at any age. This is especially true if you don't drink enough water. Unless you're a seasoned yogi, instead of vigorous yoga like Ashtanga, try a lower impact form like Hatha. And did you know that yoga can help with arthritis? Now, I have to say from personal experience, doing yoga in a yoga studio is a little like doing yoga in a sauna. I have a question before we get started. Is it always this freaking hot in here?
Yes.
Like I'm already sweating and I didn't start yet.
Yes, it's always hot.
It's freaking hot. Exercising in any kind of heat can be strenuous. And this is why it's very important for you to make sure that you are appropriately hydrated before, during, and after your exercise. As with anything, you want to build up gradually over time. You wouldn't go from doing no yoga ever to doing super strenuous hot yoga. Super strenuous hot yoga.
Excruciating 105-degree heat.
as your first exposure to yoga. That just doesn't make sense. Number 3, high intensity interval training, HIIT. Is amazing for blasting away fat and calories, but for older people who are not super fit and may overly stress the body. Dr. Bartle recommends swimming for a full body cardiovascular workout that's perfect for any fitness level. High intensity interval training is definitely strenuous. If you have not been exposed to regular exercise or regular training in the past, for you to jump right into a HIIT type of workout is probably not a great idea, because as we age, our blood vessels become less elastic and our hearts become less able to tolerate the stresses of intense activity. If you go from no activity to sudden, very intense activity, and you've not given your body time to acclimatize, that could definitely be a problem. If you've acclimatized yourself over a substantial period of time to exercise of gradually increasing intensity, I see no problem with performing high intensity workouts with well-trained individuals over the age of 50. I know some 50-year-olds that are in way better shape than people half their age. Number 4, spin classes. Fast-paced spin classes are built on the HIIT concept, and they can be too intensive for older people who are not in optimal physical condition, especially if they have joint, heart, or lung conditions. Spin classes can cause too much strain on the joints. A better option would be to spin on your own at your own pace or bike outdoors on a trail. As I mentioned with the high-intensity interval training, high-intensity spin classes are not something that you'd want to jump into right away after not having exercised previously. High-intensity spin classes are something that you'll want to work up to over time. And while it's not a bad idea to spin at your own pace, there's nothing that says that you can't spin in a spin class but at a lower intensity level. You're the one that's in charge of turning up or turning down the resistance on your bike. Knowing your own body is of paramount importance. Your body will tell you when you should stop or when you should slow down. Number 5, push-ups. The classic move may be a great way to build all-over strength, but it puts a lot of stress on your shoulders and upper back, which may be problematic for people with past neck and shoulder injuries. Dr. Bartle recommends doing wall push-ups instead. Stand against the wall and angle your body toward the wall to do a push-up. This still works your muscles, but takes the strain off. Now, for people who've never done push-ups before, I have no problems with them doing a wall push-up. However, I have no problem with people who are over the age of 50 doing push-ups on the floor. There are many progressions and many modified forms of this exercise that can be performed, such as the wall push-up, before you get to the hardest variant. Number 6, squats with weights. Trainers love squats, but for older people who haven't worked out consistently, they can put too much pressure on knees if done with weights. Instead, Dr. Bartle recommends focusing on squatting your body weight in the correct form. You will still get a good workout of the same muscles, and it's very good exercise to preserve and improve bone health. So yes, I will agree that for adults over 50, it is important for them to learn how to squat their body weight with the appropriate form. However, I will agree that it's important for everybody to be able to squat their body weight with the appropriate form. I do not have a problem, once again, for somebody who has been trained appropriately to squat with weights on their back. Most adults over the age of 50 have some degree of osteopenia or softening of the bones in their skeletal spine. Therefore, I think it's important for adults over the age of 50 to do resistance training to counteract this gradual decline of bone quality. I don't think that it is a hard and fast rule that those over the age of 50 should not squat with weights. I think it's more appropriate to say that those over the age of 50, and anyone for that matter, should only squat with weights after they have been appropriately trained to do so. Number 7, bench press. Bench pressing creates a lot of tension and stress on your neck and shoulders, says Dr. Bartle, which can exacerbate prior neck, back, and shoulder strains. A rowing machine is a better idea to gain muscle tone and avoid injuries. Although I'm not a big proponent of bench pressing, I see nothing wrong with bench pressing as an exercise for people over the age of 50, as long as they use caution and they have been appropriately trained on how to perform this exercise. As with the other exercises, this is not something that you are going to immediately jump into and try to perform for heavy weight if you've never done this exercise before. Rowing, although this also is a great exercise, is different for 2 reasons. Rowing is an exercise that is typically done for cardiovascular fitness, whereas bench press is not. Bench press is typically something that is done for strength training. Bench press is a pushing movement, and rowing is a pulling movement. So the one exercise is not a substitute for the other, but rather they are complementary exercises that those who are over the age of 50 can perform to train different aspects of fitness.
Jump
Number
straight
8,
off the ground,
burpees.
land softly, and repeat.
The burpee is an amazing full body move, but it can cause excessive strain if you're not already in great shape. Non-athletes over 50 should do modified burpees that take out the jumping, says Brett Russell, PT. Burpees are a great example of an advanced exercise option. This is not something that you're just going to jump into if you've never done exercise before. This is something that you need to work up to. If over time you've developed your cardiovascular fitness level and you have no problems with your heart or lungs or your joints, and you have the appropriate strength and flexibility to allow you to do so, you can perform burpees in a safe manner without any problems. Number 9, pull-ups. Pull-ups are challenging no matter what your age, and according to Russell, put a lot of pressure on shoulders, a complex network of muscles, joints, and ligaments that have often suffered strains and injuries by midlife. He prefers using the lat pull-down machine, which can work the same muscle groups. So I'm halfway through this article, and I feel like 50 is like the new 90. I'm 50. They're saying I shouldn't be doing pull-ups. Here I gotta disagree, because I think that bodyweight training is an excellent way of developing strength and engaging in fitness training for people who are over the age of 50. As most of the movements that we perform in life tend to be complex in nature, I tend to prefer complex bodyweight training movements over isolated machine movements. In my opinion, instead of using a lat pull-down machine, you should be modifying your pull-ups to your appropriate level of strength and experience. Number 10, crunches.
You may do up to a possibility of 50.
According to Russell, the problem with this commonplace ab move is the curving of the spine and lower back, which can be hard on older bones if they're not already reinforced with regular exercise. I would suggest a plank to work the abs instead. On this one, I got to agree with the article. There are so many other ways of training the abs that do not require you to subject the thoracic or lumbar spine to a flexion load. People might ask, why is there a problem with crunches? You get up out of your bed and you have to sit up, don't you? It's not the problem that you are flexing your spine, because after all, our spines are able to flex and extend. It is the repetitive flexion moment of your spine, whether that be the thoracic or the lumbar spine, which is a problem. Instead of doing crunches, there are much better options to work on your core, such as planks, hollow holds, or arch body holds. Number 11, deadlifts. Deadlifts can put a lot of strain on the hips and torso, says chiropractor Kelsey Nelson. Instead, she recommends doing bodyweight exercises such as glute bridges. Lie on your back and bend your knees with your feet flat on the ground. Keep your heels close enough so that you can touch them with your fingertips. Press your feet into the floor and lift your hips towards the ceiling, then lower them. But, are you never gonna lift anything up from the floor? Come on, man! No one's saying you have to deadlift 600 pounds. But we do have to lift things up from the floor, and so we should learn how to do so properly. For the appropriately trained individual working with a physiologic weight, you can deadlift over the age of 50, and I don't see any problem with that. Number 12, jumping lunges.
Engage the whole time, looking straight in front of you.
Plyometric leg exercises include things like jump squats and jumping lunges. These can cause joint strains as well as wear and tear, says Dr. Nelson. She still likes lunges. She just recommends removing the jumping part or doing them on a springy floor. I would say that jumping lunges are an advanced form of exercise. The last type of muscular contraction that you should be training after you have mastered all other levels. That includes isometric, isotonic, and eccentric muscle contractions. If you haven't mastered those, then you have no business doing plyometric exercise. Jumping lunges are not something that people over the age of 50 should be doing, but jumping lunges are not something that most people should be doing. Number 13, sprints. Running until you feel like your heart may pop out of your chest is not a great idea at this age if you're not super fit. It can also cause strains or sprains in knees and other joints, Dr. Nelson warns. Instead, try jogging or intervals of jogging and walking. As I have said with the other exercises previously mentioned, For somebody to have never done any exercise, to jump into sprinting as their first form of exercising is probably not a good idea. But sprinting over the age of 50 is generally okay if you've acclimatized yourself appropriately. As I showed in my other video,
Please tell everybody how old you are or how young you are.
How young are you? 74. She's a super sprinter.
She still sprints. She's jacked as AF. You want to be like Marta.
You do.
you can be well over the age of 50, including into your 70s, 80s, or even older, and still use sprinting as a form of exercise. And when considering running or jogging from the perspective of your joints, I would much rather do several short, high-intensity sprint repeats than to do a long-distance run over an extended period of time, because the number of impacts and the overall effect on your joints is going to be less with the sprints than it will be with the long-distance running. If sprinting is too hard, reduce the intensity or the duration of the sprinting. Number 14, leg presses. Leg presses are done using a machine that involves leaning back on a flat bench while pushing against a weight with the feet. This action flattens the natural arch of the spine and could cause damage to lumbar spinal discs, says Dr. Nelson. Use a stationary bike to target those muscle groups instead. What is the intention of what we're doing, whether you're over 50 or not? Unless you're doing very heavy resistance on your stationary bike, you're not going to develop strength the same way that you would with a resistance training exercise, such as the leg press. In my mind, the leg press is a substitute for the squat. Both exercises that develop pushing strength in the legs. But why would you do the leg press if you can just do the squat? Because after all, we do have to bend down and pick stuff up from the ground. That's it. Those are the 14 exercises from the article. What's the bottom line? If you're over the age of 50 and you haven't exercised before, there are things that you should pay attention to before you engage in exercise, particularly of a high intensity level. However, being over the age of 50 doesn't mean that you shouldn't do these things. As with anything, you want to work your way up to a high level of difficulty over time. You want to take the time to receive the appropriate guidance and acclimate your body to the level of intensity expected in your exercise. You want to take the time to learn your body so that you know what feels right and what doesn't, and when there's a problem. 50 is not a magic number where you have to stop doing things altogether. Because, come on, man, 50 is like the new 20, dude. I hope you've learned something from me reacting to exercises you should never do over the age, oh wait, they changed it. Exercises to modify if you're over the age of 50. So be sure to let us know down in the comments section, what are your thoughts about exercises that you should modify over the age of 50? If you like what we're putting down, be sure to give us a big thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because like, what else would you be doing? And as always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris, not your everyday ortho.